The night the moon turned blue, the air in Ijule carried the sound of breathing gods. The wind swirled with whispers too soft for most to hear, but the earth itself listened. In a small clay hut by the river's
Look
bend,
at her ears, they are
Hail
huge.
Lima knelt before a bowl of honey and
She looks
roasted yam,
ridiculous carrying that pot.
her palms trembling
What are you doing?
as she poured libation onto the ground.
Listen.
Spirits of
are
my
coming.
mothers, she
Amina,
murmured,
the ear
open
of the
my
spirits.
womb. Let my laughter echo again. For years her voice had begged the silence. For years the village had answered with pity sharpened into rumor. She has angered the gods, they said. Her womb is a locked calabash. Yet Hail Lima
Look at
was
her
not
ears,
wicked.
they are huge.
She was kind, beloved, the sort whose
looks
stew could
ridiculous
make a
carrying
street
that pot.
smell like festival.
What are you
Her
doing?
husband Karim adored her. His hands were calloused from farm work,
coming.
but gentle on her
Amina,
grief.
The ear
Still,
of the spirits.
the emptiness in her arms grew heavier each moon. On the night of the talking moon, a night set to arrive once in 100 years, the air shimmered like polished bone. The rivers turned to silver veins. Even the baobabs seemed to hum in their roots. The village
at
of
her ears, they
Ijule
are
stayed
huge.
awake. Drummers beating until their palms
She looks
bled.
ridiculous carrying
Children
that pot.
chasing fireflies
What are you
that
doing?
burned like tiny spirits. But Hail Lima walked alone to the
They are
river.
coming.
Her feet
Amina,
sank into cool
the ear
sand.
of the spirits.
The moon's reflection wavered on the water blue, ghostly alive. She whispered her plea once more, voice barely a thread. If you hear me, answer. Then the wind stilled. Even the frogs ceased their calls. A sound rose not from
at her
outside,
ears, they
but
are
from within
huge.
her very breath.
The moon, they say.
A voice made of
She looks
calm
ridiculous
thunder
carrying that
filled her
pot.
chest.
Stop.
I
What are you
hear
doing?
what others cannot. I will come
Listen.
when the moon
They are
listens. I will
Amina,
come to protect.
the ear of
She
the spirits.
gasped, heart hammering. Who are you? She whispered to the empty sky. Only the leaves rustled, laughing softly like hidden witnesses. When dawn came, she felt light, her body tingling as though the air itself had entered her bones.
Look at her ears,
Days
they
later,
are huge.
the old healer peered into her eyes,
She looks ridiculous
placed a
carrying that
wrinkled
pot.
hand on her belly,
What are you
and
doing?
smiled a toothless smile. You are with child, he
They are
said.
coming.
The world
Amina,
swayed.
The
Hail
ear of
Lima
the
fell
spirits.
to her knees, laughter and tears mingling. She ran home, calling Karim's name. When he lifted her in his arms, the house seemed to breathe with them. Word spread like fire. Women came singing, men drummed, neighbors poured palm wine in her honor. The same mouths that once whispered pity now praised her, saying, "The moon has opened her womb." Yet the pregnancy was not ordinary. Hail Lima heard things, voices beyond distance, the croak of frogs from unseen streams, the laughter of unseen children. At night, when she lay still, it felt as if something within her was listening, not merely to her heartbeat, but to the rhythm of the world. "It is her," she told Karim one night, her hand over her belly. "Our child listens from within me." When the time came, the sky itself seemed to wait. Two egos circled above the village, spiraling in perfect silence. Inside her hut, Hail Lima cried out, sweat, pain, drumming hearts. The midwives knelt in awe when the child came forth. They gasped, not from fear, but from wonder. The baby's ears unfurled large, soft, graceful, as the ears of an elephant calf, framing her tiny face like silk wings. "Touched by the moon," one whispered. "Or cursed by it," another said. But Hail Lima smiled, her exhaustion glowing into radiance. She drew the baby close, kissed her brow, and whispered, "Her name is Amina, born of the listening moon. She will hear what others will not." Outside, the drums of celebration grew louder, but among the crowd, whispers slithered like snakes. "Strange child, ears like beasts, sign of punishment." The spirits above watched. The first law of the unseen had been touched. The gift of the moon was greeted with mockery. And so the dead began to count. They grew with her, those ears, soft banners that brushed Amina's shoulders, fluttering when she turned, swaying like sails when the wind prowled through Ajoulay. Children stared, then copied their mother's looks. Pity sharpened into smirks. At the well, women lowered their voices but not their cruelty. "Beauty wasted," one said as the rope squealed over Whetstone. "A husband will not marry a shadow with wings." Another offered, eyes on the water, voice loud enough to wound. Boys at the marketplace clicked their tongues, cupped their hands like flapping fins. "Careful," they laughed. "She might fly away." Laughter climbed the store posts and roosted in the palm thatch. Amina kept her back straight, clay pot balanced on skull and pride alike. She did not let her mouth answer what the spirits had already heard. But at night, beneath the great mango tree, she touched the soft edges of her difference and asked the silent leaves, "Why me?" The tree answered with a hush that felt like a held breath. Hail Lima sat beside her, wrapper neat, eyes fierce. "Listen to me, child," she said. "They cannot unmark what the moon has marked. A thing mocked by men may be guarded by ancestors. What they spit at will one day feed their breath." She told the fable of the lion who could not roar the jungle's ridicule, the day of fire, the soundless call that pulled rain from an empty sky. Amina's brow tightened, absorbing the edge of the lesson. Weakness is a mask. Gift is a blade hidden in cloth. From then, Amina stopped asking, "Why me?" and began to practice how to hear. At the stream, she heard the ants marching beneath the earth, slow, stubborn, drumming. In the market, before a quarrel rose, she heard the first crack of pride in a trader's throat, the air tightening like a noose seconds before a shout. At dusk, when goats settled, she heard the breath of the hill itself, a long exhale that meant rain would walk the ridges by morning. She did not boast. She did not warn for praise. She stored what she heard like a keeper of fire. But Ajoulay would not stop. A mocker's mouth never tires. The insult became ritual. The ritual became a breach. Under the law that stitches the seen to the unseen, to scorn a moon-sent sign is to blind the village's own ears. The ancestors do not slap, they subtract. First, dogs began to bark at empty spaces, then whimper as if something larger paced beyond sight. A water gourd split along the perfect seam without being touched. A drummer's hand swelled for 3 days after he pounded a rhythm that mocked the flap of her ears. He laughed that evening. He did not laugh the next. The chief's guard whispered, that he had dreamed of a gate unlatched, swaying while everyone slept. The old healer forgot a name on his tongue for the first time in 40 years. Palm fronds rattled with no wind. Smoke from cooking fires laid flat like a warning hand. Something is approaching, said the hush that moved through courtyards. But mouths that mock cannot confess they are afraid, so they mocked louder. Amina bore it like a robe across the chest. She did not break, she braced. At night she lay awake and listened deeper, sliding her hearing into the weave between sounds. There she found the thin thread that runs from far to near, a scrape of metal where no metal lived, a cadence of feet not yet on their soil, a pulse of voices in a tongue that did not belong to a Jule. Distant, faint like a drum across water, she sat up, sweat cold, heart drumming the old emergency rhythm in her ribs. Not yet, not tonight, but coming. She told no one. Not the chief, who had already laughed once, not the boys who played bravery with sticks, not even Karim, her father, whose kindness could not outrun the village's habit of scorn. She waited, listening, testing the shape of fear against the edge of her resolve. The spirits counted. That is their arithmetic. Insult tallied against omen, derision against duty. The village had broken the law of listening, ridiculing what the moon had signed. The prize would not be blood yet, it would be warning. And if warning was refused, then the hill would light with torches and the gate would know the taste of iron. On the 7th night after the drummer's swollen hand, Amina woke to a sound like breath braided with iron. She pressed her palm to the mat, to the earth, and felt the murmur through the floor. Many feet ordered, hungry. She rose, ears flaring softly, catching the far-off scrape of spear on ring, the hiss of command in a foreign mouth. Her stomach dropped, not from surprise but recognition. She had heard the future finally step into the present. In the morning, the market laughed again. Habit is a stronger drug than fear. Amina lifted her part, steady as a soldier, and said nothing. But inside, a line had been crossed. The offense was complete. The next sound would be judgment approaching. The first true silence came at dusk. Not peace silence. The kind that walks on bare feet, settles on the rooftops, presses a hand across the village mouth. Even the crickets stopped. The spirits were holding their breath. Amina was in the market beside her mother when it began a trembling in her ears like the flutter of trapped birds. The baskets of groundnuts slipped from her fingers, scattering like spilled omens across the dust. Her face went still. "Mama," she whispered, "something moves beyond the hills." Heolima's eyes narrowed. "The wind, child?" "No." Amina's voice was a threat drawn tight. "Feet. Many feet. Metal. Voices that don't belong to us. They are marching." The crowd laughed as they passed, pretending not to hear. But a shadow of unease rippled through the air, the kind that prickles skin before a storm. Heolima placed her hand on her daughter's arm. "Go," she said. "Warn the chief. Tell him before the night deepens." Amina ran. Dust rose behind her like a ghost. Goats scattered, chickens screeched, doors blurred. Her ears strained toward the horizon, the sound growing clearer, closer, harder. Her lungs burned, but the sound was louder than pain. At the chief's compound, she burst through the gate, gasping. Warriors sat at ease, carving sticks, sipping palm wine. They looked up, startled by the girl with wide ears and fire in her eyes. "Chief Olawu!" she cried. "Danger approaches." Raiders marched toward a Jule armed many, coming fast. The old man lifted his head slowly. His robe shimmered with age and authority. "And who told you this?" Amina's chest heaved. "No one. I heard them." A murmur rippled among the guards. One laughed sharp, dismissive. "You heard them? From the other side of the hills? Perhaps your ears have grown too proud, Amina of the Moon." Another joined in, mock dramatic. "Maybe she hears the thunder complaining about the rain." The laughter stung like gravel. "I know what I heard," she snapped, voice trembling with restrained fury. "They carry spears. They wear metal. They are close. If you do not prepare, the village will fall." The chief sighed, heavy as dusk. "We thank you for your concern, daughter of Heolima, but fear can be a trickster. Leave war to men who have seen it. Return to your chores." Her heart shrank inside her chest, not from humiliation, but despair. She bowed low, more ritual than respect. "As you command, chief." When she turned away, the guards were still chuckling. Behind them, palm trees swayed, the only ones listening. That night, the moon hid behind black clouds. The air smelled of metal and distance. Amina sat by her window, every nerve listening. Beneath the hum of crickets, she caught it faint but real, a rhythm of boots through mud, the click of blades against armor, the harsh foreign breath of men who hunted in the dark. Her heart began to hammer. "They are coming," she whispered. "Closer." She shook her mother awake. "Mama, rise. The sound is upon us. I can hear their breath." Heolima's eyes widened. She tied her wrapper tight, calm as a priestess. "Then we must wake the village. They will not listen to me, but they will listen to you. Do what must be done." "But Mama, they mocked me. They call me mad." "Then let their mockery be the price they pay for life. Go, Amina. The moon did not gift you silence." Amina stood trembling at the threshold, the night wind stroking her ears like a blessing and a dare. In the square, the emergency drum stood waiting, massive, sacred, forbidden. Only chiefs and war drummers could touch it. To strike it without permission was to summon ancestral wrath. The penalty was exile, sometimes death. But the voices of the unseen roared in her chest now. "Strike. Let them hear what they have refused to hear." She seized the drumsticks. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to do. The first strike fell like a thunderbolt. Dum! Dogs barked, windows flew open. The second came. Harder, faster, dum, dum, dum. Sound rode across the huts like a wall of war. "Who beats the sacred drum?" Voices shouted. Doors burst open. Torches flared. Faces appeared, wild with sleep and fear. "Stop, Amina! You bring punishment upon us all." But she did not stop. Her arms moved with a will, not her own spirit guided. Relentless, sweat poured down her face. Dum, 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 dum. The chief himself appeared, his staff gleaming with cold fire. "Amina," he roared, "do you know the cost of this madness? You defy sacred law." She turned, her breath ragged, her voice breaking yet unyielding. "They are here, Chief. The raiders I spoke of. They are almost upon us. I hear them running the Yam Hill even now." The crowd erupted disbelief, fear, scorn, all tangled. And then the sound arrived. Not from her ears this time, but from the distance a faint, rising roar. Metal shouting, torches breaking the wind. A young herdsman burst into the square, his face pale as clay. "Chief, I saw them, strangers with fire and weapons. They are nearly here." The laughter died. The chief's hand trembled on his staff. Slowly, his eyes met Amina's. The anger melted. Reverence took its place. "You were right," he said, voice low. "The moon has spoken through you." He raised the staff high. "To your posts! Wake the warriors, hide the children, beat the drums of war." The square exploded into movement, firelight, panic, steel, prayer. Amina stood frozen for breath, the sound of drums and cries swallowing her shame. For years they had mocked her for hearing too much. Tonight she had heard just enough to save them all. That night, as the warriors took their posts and the drums thundered toward dawn, the ancestors leaned down from their unseen thrones and murmured, "Balance has returned. The mockers have remembered their ears." The first spear struck the gate before dawn. A dull, echoing thunk wood splitting under iron, then another and another, until the whole night seemed to breathe with violence. The raiders had come. They descended from the Yam Hill like a flood of shadows, torches spitting, voices snarling in a tongue that did not belong to a Jule. Their feet pounded the earth in brutal rhythm. The same sound that Amina had heard nights before, now no longer prophecy but arrival. Inside the village, the drums of alarm answered. Not one now, but many a forest of sound rising in defense. The air pulsed with heartbeat and fear. Chief Olawu stood at the gate, his staff lifted high. His eyes, once slow with doubt, burned like twin fires. "To your posts!" he cried. "Let the moon bear witness, Ejule will not kneel." Warriors gathered, leather shields gleaming with oil, spears glinting like fangs. Women carried pots of pepper, water, and ash, their faces streaked with determination. The old and the young worked side by side, dragging barricades, lighting torches, and among them, at the heart of the square, stood Amina, her ears trembling with every sound that rippled through the dark. She could hear everything, every shift, every breath, every movement. "The left flank," she whispered to the nearest guard. They climbed from the yam field. He looked doubtful, but before he could question her, a shout rose from the darkness. The raiders were scaling the wall exactly where she said. The warriors turned, throwing stones and spears. The invaders fell back, screaming. Word spread quickly. The girl hears them. Now, when she spoke, they obeyed. Amina stood at the center of the chaos, her voice rising above the clash. "They move by the east fence," she shouted. "To the palm grove next." Her ears, wide and fluttering, caught the world like sails catching the wind. The battle became a kind of drum circle attack, and reply, sound and counter sound. Spears clanged like cymbals, arrows whistled through air thick with smoke. The raiders pushed hard, thinking to crush a sleepy village, but what they met instead was fury awakened. The women of Ajule fought with ancestral cunning. They hurled boiling water, pepper smoke, and burning palm oil. They sang battle chants, their voices rhythmic and wild, calling upon the spirits of mothers who had birthed warriors before them. Amina's mother, Hail Lima, stood beside her, gripping a clay pot filled with ash and embers. Her face was calm, the serenity of one who has already spoken to death. You see,